Evening and welcome to the January 10th, 2023 Finance Committee meeting. I'm sitting in as chair this evening as Tyler couldn't make it. I'll just briefly go through the agenda and then we'll get on with the business at hand. Tonight we're going to have our finance director is going to give us an update on the budget process and whatever other topics she chooses to update us on. We'll look at public input, member updates, and then our agenda says to approve previous meeting minutes, but I don't believe that we have the correct quorum to do it without Tyler. So we can verify that when it comes time, but I don't think we'll actually be able to approve any minutes. And then we'll get to my favorite motion of the evening, which is adjournment. So with that, I'll turn it over to Alicia and she can give us the finance director update.
Good evening, everyone. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So for the fiscal year 2024 budget, I sent you all the digital copy. We also have hard copies in the town administrator's office for each one of you. The proposed fiscal year 24 budget is $63,688,120. That includes $61,049,414 for operations and almost $2.2 million for capital warrant articles. We made it a balanced budget with the revenue also equal $63,688,120. The Community Preservation Act budget will be funded by the 1% Community Preservation Act funds as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee. LCTV's budget will come out of their receipts reserved for appropriation, and the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund budgets will come out of enterprise funds as presented by the Littleton Electric Light and Water Department. So I figured I'd start with some operating budget highlights and some capital budget highlights. So for operations, implementation of the Civic Ready and mass notification system for local governments to inform the public of public safety issues and other notable town events is on its way through the IT budget. Upgrading the entire town website to a new website platform and improving transparency and user experience through the IT budget. Adding an additional firefighter by making a corresponding reduction in the fire department overtime line item. This is in addition to the firefighter that was added at special town meeting. The November 1st, 2020 special town meeting funded a full-time facilities director and a full-time assistant town planner, with the assistant town planner set to be funded April 1st. After an extended effort to hire a Board of Health agent, the finance team is proposing to eliminate that position as we've been unable to fill it and return back to the Board of Health, Neshoba Associated Boards of Public Health. Funds to be reallocated within the human resource budget to establish a new employee recognition program for $20,000 and an employee tuition reimbursement program of $20,000 for non-union personnel with the objective of supporting and retaining staff. And many of the expense requests have been level service funded. We conservatively estimated insurance and cherry sheet aid and assessments. For capital budget highlights, do you have questions? Yep.
Yeah, no, just one point of clarification that the assistant planner is funded from April of this year, and it is a full-time position in the budget for next year.
Correct.
So it doesn't show up as a headcount addition, but there is a major addition to the spending for that headcount. Okay.
For capital budget, thank you, Fred. For capital budget highlights, $65,000 for new irrigation wells at the town common in Cooperfield, which will allow the town to refrain from utilizing potable water for irrigation purposes and provide for an estimated 7-year payback period. This will provide some savings to the PRCE utilities budget. So you notice there's a little tiny downtick in there when we get there. $415,000 for a new ambulance to be authorized with short-term debt. Current lead time for construction of the ambulance is approximately 2 years. During that time, we expect the ambulance revolving fund will be building up a balance to cover the purchase, and then the town can rescind the borrowing. $200,000 for replacement of the camera and security system at the police station, $140,000 for the replacement of 2 police cruisers, $696,000 to the schools for including sidewalk repairs at $71,000, upgrading the school HVAC system $275,000, a preliminary study for the replacement of the high school roof at $50,000, various facility improvements at $100,000, and the reconfiguration of the high school tennis courts via $200,000 grant through the Littleton Electric Light and Water Department. And then,
excuse me, and I think one point that could be made or should be made going forward is with the $415,000 for the ambulance, we're going to be looking to rescind a borrowing authorization for the last ambulance because we were able to purchase it through the funds that we're going to try to use for the new ambulance. So we have a history of being able to do that and not have to borrow. But in order to get this on order, the town has to have the authorization to spend the money. So that's really the reason that we're asking for the borrowing authorization.
Correct.
So, okay.
Thank you, Fred.
Yep. No.
$4.2 million for the purchase of Indian Hill, 36 King Street. The proposed capital budget anticipates a $657,000 from free cash to reduce the borrowing amount. And this will be further discussed on the January 24th meeting with more information.
And I'm assuming that I'll talk about that. I have some stuff about that, but I'll talk about that during member updates later.
I'm sorry, Brian, could you speak up a little bit?
Yeah, I couldn't hear.
Oh, okay. So I've got a couple of comments on that last one, but I can hold it for member updates or now if you like.
I know that, I don't know if you saw the email from the town administrator's office, but they're going to be updating everyone with more information on that on January 24th at the budget meeting.
Right. Right. We have a joint meeting with the selectmen for the second round of budget reviews on the 24th.
Right. And I had some conversation with select board last night that I can talk about now or later.
Well, why don't we do it during the updates, member updates?
Sure.
Okay, with you? Yep. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Alicia.
Okay. This is showing a budget summary for the proposed fiscal year 24 against the amended fiscal year 23. And I put in just a note that this is dependent on the information we have at this time, subject to change, because we made a lot of assumptions while waiting for definitive information, such as what the cherry sheet's going to be. We were conservative. We put a 1% growth factor. Insurance, we use the national average of a 9% increase, but we're not sure what that's actually going to be till later on in the spring.
Yeah, those insurance guys will get you every time.
They sure will. Tax levy, normal levy increase of 2.5%. New growth remains level at 600,000, which is primarily from the residential market. Debt exclusion remains flat with a slight decline during the period due to planned withdrawals from the debt stabilization account. Undesignated fund balance estimated for future years has available free cash at $3 million to $5 million level. And as I stated earlier, cherry sheet at a 1% increase. The actual net state aid over fiscal year 21 and 23 has been increasing on average at 3.12%. Local receipts assumed a decrease in fiscal year 24, 5.8%, with a gradual recovery in fiscal year 25 and 26, averaging a 5.7% increase annually. And then I just put the breakdown at the bottom. Any questions, or can I move on? Okay. Fiscal year 2024 budget expenses, salaries are assumed to increase 2.5% to 4% annually based on step and COLA assumptions. Operating expenses, town expenses are assumed to grow at 1.5% to 2% each year. The school appropriation is assumed to grow at 5% each year. Debt service decreased from 24 to 25%. From fiscal year 24 to fiscal year 25 due to the refunding and increases in fiscal year 26 as the senior center debt service goes online. Employee benefits assumed a 9% growth in health insurance. OPEB funding remains stable at around 1.9 million from fiscal year 24 to 27. As of 2022, 78.13% funded. Retirement assumes a 6.5% annual assessment increase based on the Middlesex Retirement's funding schedule. And we'll put additional money towards that from free cash. And we're shifting more to retirement. As of 2022, 68.01% funded. So we're doing, as you can see, pretty close to 80% funded on your OPEB versus close to 70% on your retirement.
Right. Well, over the last number of years, the town has been quite aggressive trying to get to that number with OPEB. And in talking with Steve Venuti, he believes that the town will have saved about $11 million in the OPEB debt, as well as looking at the retirement assessment. If we can get to a similar level on that, there'd be a significant savings to the town as well in the long haul. So it looks like we're spending approximately the same amount of money as we have been putting into OPEB, but we're splitting it between OPEB and retirement, trying to goose the retirement up as well as OPEB. So that's the main reason for doing that is long-term debt that we won't have to step up to, hopefully.
Absolutely.
If we can stay on this last page for just a second, I just wonder if the debt service, it ought to say, yes, we're going to be ruling on the senior center debt, but we're also going to be somewhat unspecified, but we're also going to be rolling on a big chunk of change for Shaker and a big chunk of change for high school roof. So, I mean, I think it's worth mentioning that debt service is going to go up a bunch, not just for the senior center.
Yep, not disagreeing. We just know for right now that senior center, we're not sure about this. The schools would not be under the levy, and as far as the roof, we still have to do the study, and I'm not sure how long it's going to be. So definitively, as we know it, we know for sure that the senior center will be online at 26. But definitely noted. Thank you, Brian, on the other projects that are coming up.
I mean, people have said Shaker is likely to be 10 million. We're not doing that under the levy. I think there's no way.
Yeah, no. For fiscal year 2024, the full-time employee initial budget request was 2 firefighters, 2 employees, equipment operators for the DPW, and an administrative coordinator for the public buildings. There's only one we funded, which was by cutting the overtime, which was 1 firefighter. And we put estimates for benefit costs and OPEB at $26,984 to the above salary.
That 1 firefighter is in addition to the one we added recently. Right?
Yep.
Okay, so it's the incremental salary next year is almost 2 full heads, or at least 1.5 full heads.
And I've got some more information on that as well. I can admit with the fire chief, but I'll defer that to later. But there's some more information coming about that.
Okay. So here's the general government summary. So it's showing, I try to give you a quick overview instead of going through the whole book as it's quite large. So town meeting, we increased the expenses by $934. Select board, we decreased it by $7,000. We took down that magic MVC by what it's actually the spending. So that could take it down $7,000. Town administrator went up $24,218 based on step colas, level service expenses. Accounting $14,052, same thing based on steps and colas. Assessor $36,937. A lot of that money, that 13.72%, is her Patriot software and her Camera Bridge, which before was under IT, which is now under her department because only her department uses that software. Treasurer went up $58,161. They're having a position that got transferred from human resources down to treasury. So they have a new position there. Tax collector, 3,958. We cut town council by 9,519. Human resources, we cut the part-time down by 35,654. IT went up by 46,520. The town clerk, we took it down by 2,887. Elections, we bumped up 16,600 for that unfunded state mandate for details at all the early elections. Land use reduction of 62,692. That's because we moved the planner down back into planning out of the land use. Conservation decrease of 9,112. They wanted to increase hours, which would have made it benefit eligible. We decreased the hours back to what it was. Planning, that 183,347 is the mixture between putting the planner back and that assistant town planner position that is going to be funded this year in April. And then zoning appeals, we took it down 1,100 because there was no need to have that. It was to give additional pay for doing some of the work, but the work's being completed within the normal work hours, so they didn't need additional pay in there.
Alicia, when you say steps in COLA normally is sort of in the
cost of living
or so.
Yes.
But the steps with the new grid, what are the steps worth? Ballpark doesn't, just ballpark percent. Is it a 3% step or is it?
I believe it's a 3% step.
Around 3%?
Yeah.
Okay, so if somebody gets a step on a COLA,
it'd be 5.
It's really a 5% increase that they get until they max out.
Correct.
Okay. So, when we're thinking about, we're doing a 2% increase, it's really a 5% increase. Okay.
Yep. So here's the police budget. You can see it's a 2.95% increase on their wages and a 28% increase. And you can see the software expenses is a big part of that. Their own that got moved from IT to the police is $32,000. So that's one of the big drivers that increased their budget. Fire, 15.3.
Just on the, hey, this is Al. So just on the police budget, we did meet with him the other day, and I think it's not necessarily an increase; it's just a movement. So showing it as an increase probably isn't fair. It's just a movement from another budget.
Correct. Yep, it's just a request from the IT budget into the police budget. Correct.
And you'll see that probably in fire and a couple of the other departments as well, Al.
Yeah, but when we talk to the town, just so they're educated, because if they see an increase, they're going to say, "Why is there an increase?"
Right. No, you're absolutely right.
Yep.
Right. During our presentation at the town meeting, we're going to have to say, "Look, you're going to see this in every place, and this is why." So.
Fire department, 15.33% increase. They have an increase in their overtime, which we did cut some of that down to fund their fire position. They also have a reduction of 12.25% in their regular expenses. Any questions on the fire budget?
Yeah, I spoke with the fire chief this morning, and Alan, I really apologize. I totally dropped the ball on you there. But they in 21 it was 225 and then 458, and we've dropped it down. But the chief said that we're halfway through the year, and he's basically already spent the 256. So I mean, we can bring the number down, but it's they're spending it now. Moving forward with some hiring, they may be able to pull that down. But just so we know, it's not going to be 256. It's likely it could be as much as double that.
Yeah, I spoke to the chief, and per the chief, if we have more bodies that will help bring down some of that overtime number. So that's why we cut the overtime to fund the position.
Right. And I'm just saying that with that being said, that they've essentially spent the year's amount on overtime already.
Well, I'm hoping next year it won't be as bad, but we will definitely see how we go.
Yes. Right. Yep.
Oops. Dispatch. Dispatch only increased for wages 0.76% or $5,204. Any questions on dispatch? Okay. Building inspection. Building inspection increased by 18.79% for wages and decreased by 37.15% in their ordinary, for a total increase of 15.65%.
And the wage increase is the
electrical that is shared. So we fund it, but we get 50% of it back through an intermunicipal agreement. So he has to show the whole salary, even though we're only paying 50% because we're getting reimbursed the other 50.
And where does that reimbursement show? Or does it?
I built a line in the general fund revenue for that to come in so they can track it.
Okay, good. All right, good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Civil preparedness, decrease of 22.81%. We took down that overtime. As you can see, it's never been used, so there was no need holding that 1,500. And there is nobody that's doing the crossing guard anymore, so we got rid of that by $5,000. Canine control went at 1.39%. The same person that does canine control also does the health testing on animals. So for the health testing, we added that $500 to the animal control expense line so that they can do both. And now the police will monitor that person, even though they're doing stuff for the health, they're also doing for the police so that we can get bills and streamline.
So the bills will come in through the police department.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, because we weren't receiving the other ones from the health, and we're trying to rebuild that relationship, make sure that bills are paid in a timely manner.
Okay.
DPW. So we have a overall 7.03% increase. That wastewater, stormwater, 480,000 is just an estimate. I'm not sure yet what our sewer budget's going to look like. As soon as I know that, that number is going to change, whether it be up or down. The 130,000 landfill monitor, that had originally been in the transfer station. We took it out of transfer station last year and put it in highway until I built a division for it. So now it's its own division. As it just really didn't belong in the transfer station, as it's just post landfill monitoring. So they're just monitoring the wells. It's really not transfer station. Health and Human Services budget. So that health agent position we eliminated. So that's the $94,388 because we'd like to return back to Neshoba Board of Health.
And what is the cost of the Neshoba contract?
$35,000.
Okay, so it's a net savings of 60,000.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Elder and Human Services, salaries going up by 7.41%, and expenditures are going up by 4.97% for a total increase to their budget of 7.07%. Any questions on Elder and Human Services?
And the 7% increase in salaries, are there some hours in there?
Yep. So part of it is the new comp and class study. Move the wages up. So you can see the 6.07% due to that, 4.5. And then I think some of their staff, just like you said, due to their hours.
Okay, so there are some more hours in there. Okay. Okay.
The veterans agent is level funded along with the veterans benefits. The culture and recreation library went up 7.76%. Parks and Rec 3.36%. Memorial Day only $500, but 66.67%. And the reason that $500 is because of inflation. So the cost of flags and wreaths have gone up. So the budget that he was allocated wasn't enough to cover the inflation. Cultural Council, 1,500, Shade Tree down 1,500. Shade Tree wasn't using that, so it got transferred up to Cultural Council, who is using funds.
And the library going up quite so much is?
Yep. A part of that is the comp and class study, and the other part of that is the required contribution amount we have to make to keep the state funding.
Okay.
Other general government, permanent municipal building committee, we took 20,000 out of there, and we actually put that inside of public buildings. The 197,867 also includes the new facilities position in the budget. And I also had to bump up the utility costs because they've been rising, especially what the new buildings that we have. So we have to incorporate money for the new buildings plus the rising utility costs. Property and liability insurance went up 6%. That's a conservative estimate. We went over with the Maya rep. Central communications, 115,000. Fuel, 9.68%. We went up just in case fuel rises, and we reduced our transfers by 30.8%.
And people may have heard this at last night's meeting, but we heard both last night with the select board and also with the police chief that they've had a tremendous return on investment in going to hybrid vehicles. They can't switch the cruisers yet, but the non-cruiser vehicles, they're seeing a 40% reduction in fuel costs,
which is amazing.
Yeah, they're like we're not going to buy anything but hybrids from now on. And cruisers, they're not sure yet, but I don't know. But they're pretty keen on the idea, because if you're just sitting there idling, you don't burn anything, and when you need pickup, there's nothing like a hybrid to 0 to 60 in a couple seconds.
Here's an educational summary. Technical schools, 10.14% increase, or 74,841. And
excuse me, Alicia, is that a solid number? That
is an estimate, so that could change.
Okay, because it actually does go up and down because of the number of kids we have. So.
Correct. It's based on enrollment.
Yeah.
So okay. I reached out to Steve Mark to help me with that. So that's probably going to change.
Okay.
So that was the estimate I had at the time.
Yeah, I would reach out to Charlie Ellis, who's actually on the Littleton's rep to their school committee. And he's actually a pretty good source of information as well. And I'm sure Steve Minuti can connect you with Charlie Ellis.
Okay. Thank you, Fred.
Yeah.
Littleton Public Schools went up by 6%, or $1,383,015. Employee benefits. So unemployment took it down by 16,000, or 16%, based on actual. Medicare, it's up 6.85%. Employee benefit life insurance, level funded. Long-term, short-term disability reduced by 24.24%, or 8,000. Employee benefits and medical claim insurance, as we talked about, we estimated a 9% increase until we know, based on the national average. The pension went up 11.48%, and that's us giving additional funding in that way. Employee benefits other went up $3,000. Workers' comp insurance went up $2,000. And our transfer to the OPEB trust went down 27.41%. So we're still putting more in OPEB, but we've shifted it so that the surplus is more going towards the pension now instead of OPEB. But we are putting more, still putting a little bit additional in OPEB as well.
Right.
And then at the bottom, I did put the note exactly what you talked about. The town has saved $11,715,000 in assessments between fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 35 with the extra funding. So I just put a note at the bottom.
You did. Good, good.
Debt service. Oh, do you have a question on the back?
Fred, it looked like you were talking.
Okay. Debt service, our principal has been reduced by 7.25% and our interest has been reduced by 11.54%, primarily due to the refunding of debt service that we did. We refinanced our debt. And other debt service increase of $95,000 or 19% is due to bonding and band costs for projects.
Mm-hmm. Well, the debt interest, reissuing the debt, obviously is a benefit, but that benefit's going away with interest rates going up rather than going down. So we've been able to take advantage of it, but now we have to be really, really careful what we put into debt because interest rates aren't likely to be going down in the near future anyway.
Correct.
So that's something that, we've wisely taken advantage of. I'm not sure all towns have done that very effectively, but it's something that our finance team has done a good job at. So.
Yeah, Littleton's been, I think, has an amazing financing strategy between the stabilization and capital stabilization. Excellent financial policies to put the town in a really good spot, especially when you have these type of projects.
All right. All righty.
And the last slide is on our capital plan. So I wanted to show you the different projects by department and their different funding sources. So the cemetery department, that historic grave preservation has been funded through the CPC. So I would think the CPC will cover that $9,950.
Has that been reviewed with CPC or is this the assumption that it will be done?
This assumption that will be done because all the other projects that they've gone through for historic preservation for the graves, they've been approving.
Okay.
CPC has been approving.
Yep. Thank you.
Administrative building needs assessment. We've asked them to utilize their perpetual care trust funding for that for $16,000. For the DPW for a new SUV, $50,000 from free cash. And for the irrigation wells that we spoke about earlier in the Commons in Cooperfield, $65,000 out of free cash. Fire department, the new ambulance, $450,000 as a ban, probably going to be paid off as we build the balance up in the revolving fund so that we don't have to go out and bond. LCTV fiber upgrades and archival will come out of their receipts reserved for appropriation paid cable fund. The planning department zoning bylaw diagnostic and recodification, $32,000 from free cash. The police department's camera and security system, $200,000 free cash. 2 cruiser replacement, $140,000 from free cash. And their tasers, they're going to be leasing over 5 years at $10,409 is in their police operating budget.
So I haven't been doing this for a little while now, but what is our car replacement policy with the police now? I mean, it used to be like 2 and 1.
Right. They're ranging between 2 and 3 a year.
2 and 3 a year. Oh, okay. And so the cars are only lasting 2 years?
I would want to talk to the chief. I think they're lasting a little longer than that, but he seems to be replacing his fleet. He asked for 3, we gave him 2. But I know in his plan, it looks like he's requesting between 2 and 3 vehicles a year. So I can ask him how old his fleet is, and I have a bunch of that information that I can provide too.
Okay.
Parks and Recreation, Community Education, 50,000 for club sailboats out of their revolving fund that was newly established last year, or this fiscal year, shall I say, and the replacement of their pickup truck, 60,000 out of free cash. I'm hoping they're going to get a hybrid vehicle. But I need to meet with Alicia on that because there was some discussion. Littleton Public Schools, 696,000, 200,000 of which is coming from the LELWD grant for the high school tennis courts reconfiguration. The remainder is coming out of free cash for the concrete sidewalk repair at all the schools, high school rooftop HVAC unit, high school roof study, 50,000, and some facility improvements, including furniture, floors, play structures at 100,000. And then select board purchase 36 King Street or Indian Hill, 657,000 out of free cash. The remainder to come out of a borrowing.
Okay.
Any questions on capital?
I just got a curiosity. Do we have a policy on? I'm just looking at the 657 coming out of free cash. We've got that project, but we've got other projects on the way. I guess I'm just wondering, do we have a policy on when we use free cash for capital, and how if there's multiple capital projects coming, how we decide where to put it?
We do have a free cash policy, so we have to maintain 5% of the budget in designated fund balance, and then in the remainder we put in different buckets. And I have a spreadsheet for that. But as far as picking the projects, that's kind of up to the finance team on as we look at them. As you saw, like the pool and we couldn't afford that, or some of the other ones. So we have to go through and kind of look at them close and figure out what we want and what we don't. So,
right. I guess what I'd like us to discuss at some point is that money like that, consider the world where we put that into our capital stabilization fund, and we just build that up, and then we make a decision about what projects to fund. Because the problem with doing it this way is, if we have a particular project that someone really likes, it's relatively easy to make it seem less expensive than it is. Mm-hmm. It's like, look, this only costs this much because we've got this from free cash. Whereas I think if that free cash had gone into cap stabilization, then all the projects would stand equally on their own, and then would make a decision of when we wanted to spend out of cap stabilization.
Yep, and we have put some money in capital stabilization, and we're spending some out for capital. But I think they'll have more of a plan and information for you on that one, Brian, on the 24th. Right. But definitely, I mean, it's up to the select board and up to finance committee on, this is just our proposal.
Right. I'm saying it's sort of, this is our bailiwick. And so I'm suggesting that money like this should make the journey into capital stabilization, and then from there we decide what projects it should get spent on. I think it just leads to more transparency and more equitableness between the various cap projects. I'm just curious what the other Fincom members think.
Well, so the way we do it is we try to do a capital plan, so we have something voted for at town meeting ready to go. If you put it in, so if we put it in a cap stabilization, we'd have to have a town meeting just to put it in capital stabilization. Then you'd have to have another town meeting to take it out of capital stabilization. So,
well, you could do it all together. I mean, I'm saying one could imagine saying, yep, let's take this, at the next town meeting, put this into cap stabilization, and at the same town meeting could say, hey, we want to take a certain amount out. I think I'm just curious what the other Fincom members actually think about this.
I've always seen it this way, where if you're wanting to plan for capital, you usually do it in advance before.
Right.
But it's definitely something you can suggest. I would definitely just talk to the town administrator's office.
And I'm going to say for a third time, I'd like to ask the other FinCom members if you would let them answer.
I'm sorry, it may be my computer or my old ears. I'm having trouble hearing you, Brian. I'm sorry.
Okay, so it's been my experience in this town that when we want to make a project seem less expensive, we find the money to, say, hey, we've got this money, we found this money. Anthony is even saying, hey, we can find the money, from other capital projects. It didn't cost as much. It really doesn't cost any much. Don't look there. And I've never cared for that. And when we have Fred, we were hardliners about when we have extra money, we sock it away and then we decide how to spend it. So my ask to other FinCom members is, what do we think about this? Because I could easily see saying, let's take this amount, this 657, let's put it right into the capital stabilization fund. And then at this very same town meeting, we could say, hey, we just happen to want to spend exactly 657 out of cap, but at least that's a decision. And then it's explicit, and it's not like, hey, this project is cheap because we found some money.
Mm-hmm. Well, back when we put the policy in place, we clearly didn't have this much cash flow. And it was tight to put, I think it's 5% of the operating budget into capital stabilization. Correct me if I'm wrong, Alicia, but it's something in that order. But this was years ago when we put the policy in place, and there's nothing that says that, if the town is in a different financial place than they were, we could step back and revisit the policy and say, maybe the policy should be a little richer, or maybe it's too rich. I don't know. But I believe we're staying with the policy that we have, and we're funding the stabilization funds per the policy, or at least per the policy on an annual basis. Is that correct, Alicia?
So part of it, yes. So the 5% that has to stay in undesignated fund balance. And then above and beyond that, then we start putting money into the different stabilization buckets, correct? And we put some money into capital stabilization at special town meeting. And now we're taking some of that money and we're moving it into specific projects that were requested via the budget capital process that is done every year.
Yeah, my 2 cents on the, go ahead, sorry. Go
ahead, please speak
I was just gonna say my 2 cents here is I'm okay with putting the money to the side, but we should only be putting money aside for things that we know what the use is going to be or potentially going to be. So for example, Indian Hill, we should put 0 aside for that until we know what the plan is.
So just so I'm clear, Alan, what you're saying is that your recommendation would be to only, for example, we want to buy an ambulance, and we have is a little bit different scenario because we have a stream of funds that go into the ambulance fund that will pay it. But if that was a capital expenditure rather than being paid out of the ambulance fund, your recommendation would be, okay, we know in 2 years we're going to have to pay for an ambulance, so let's put X money into a fund or put money aside, the way you said it, for the ambulance.
Correct, exactly. Put it on this list and highlight it to the ambulance. We can always change it later down the road, but I wouldn't put any money to something like Indian Hill because there's no no designed use for that yet, where we know we're going to need an ambulance.
Right.
Okay. Well, again, we've encouraged town administration and the selectmen to have an open discussion with us. And I think it's scheduled the 24th, is it, Alicia?
Yes. Yes. And I noticed we have a select board member in the audience. I don't know if they want to speak or not.
Or whatever, but.
So we can leave it like this for here, but when we talk to the selectmen, I think we should, or at least when we vote, I'm probably going to be one of the ones against putting money towards Indian Hill.
Okay.
Right. The thing is, and I've, well, see, the thing is that right now, Indian Hill is being purchased for something, and we're figuring out what the something is, and putting this money aside now implies that, hey, we've decided that this is a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
And since it's something, you know, I don't know if it's a great idea.
Right. But I think we only have sort of half of the story here. And I think we need all of the story. And I think when we meet on the 17th and then the 24th, we should, you know, bring our thoughts in and be prepared to discuss it. If in fact there is a plan and it makes sense, then, you know, I'd sort of consider supporting it. If there is no plan, then I'd really question it. I know that it's come up sort of all of a sudden, but, you know, we knew for years that they were vacating, so that it's not that much of a surprise. And whether we didn't pay attention to it or, you know, or whatever happened, I don't know. But, you know, this thing has really sort of hit the road in the last 3 or 4 months. And I know Anthony has spent time with them, along with, I believe, at least one, if not more, of the selectmen have been involved. So if there is a plan, then we should either get behind it or get off the bus, one or the other. If we're comfortable with it, then we should support it. If we're not, then we should do as we've always done and stand up and say why we don't support it. But I'm not prepared to make a decision one way or another right now. You know, as I mentioned in the last, I think it was the last meeting, you know, I could see not spending $18 million on a senior center and putting it in there. I don't know whether that makes sense in the total picture or not. So I'd like to hear what people's vision of the total picture is. To Brian's point, what's the plan so we can either get on the bus or get off the bus, one or the other.
Fred, I have select board member Cindy Napoli with her hand up to speak. May I allow her to speak?
Sure. Hey, Cindy.
Oh, Cindy, you're on mute.
You're muted.
That always helps, right, Tom? Thanks. Good evening. Thank you. Thank you for letting me speak. So I've just been listening to the discussion about the Indian Hill Arts Facility. I just wanted to let Fincom know that the select board's been talking to Indian Hill representatives from at least 2017, 2018. We asked to have the right of first refusal to purchase that property. We engaged the services of LLB architects to assess that property and help us figure out what we could use that space for. And that was part of the space needs analysis that was done in 2017, 18, 19. That whole project went on for years. And so the plan for Indian Hill is we determined it would be a great fit for the Park and Recreation Department and the school department. And that information was shared with you in a memo from an email from Ryan Ferreira this afternoon. So I don't know if members of Fincom have had a chance to read that email from him yet, but I encourage you to do so because all the information that you're talking about this evening is contained in that email from him. And we can talk more about this at our meeting coming up later this month. But I think that's going to answer a lot of your questions.
Yeah, I saw that memo come in just before I came in here. I was looking through my email and I did not get to go through it all.
Okay.
But you know, we're, I don't know, 4 weeks from town meeting, and now we're beginning to see the detail.
Right.
If we've been discussing this since 2017, it would have been nice to have somebody in the loop. And maybe we could have done some financial planning for something like this.
Right. Well, but the thing was, at that time though, Fred, the building wasn't for sale. So it just came up for sale. Because we did look at that property, but it wasn't available, wasn't put on the market till recently. Right. So that's why but those space needs reports had been circulated and discussed at select board meetings for years. So,
along with all the 37 other space needs studies that have been done, and we paid tons of money for space needs plans that we haven't done a darn thing with. So, I understand what you're saying, Cindy, in this particular case, but it is what it is. We are where we are. Mm-hmm. And if we want to support it, then we need to understand what the plan is.
Right.
And if we decide to support it, we'll support it wholeheartedly. And if we cannot get on the boat, then we'll get off the boat.
Right. And that's fair enough, Fred. I just wanted to make the board aware that the information is available.
No, absolutely. And I did notice that Ryan's memo came in, and we can encourage Fincom members to go through it, and if they have questions prior to the meeting, to reach out to get questions answered. Mm-hmm. I'm just sitting in for Tyler here, so I assume Tyler would support what we're discussing here.
You're doing a very good job, Fred.
If I could just jump in for a sec. I mean, I read the previous, or this might be the same assessment, and people, as I said last night, people have said, oh, the consultant has concluded that the building would not be suitable for senior center, and I saw nothing to that effect. So,
yeah, it's in that information that was circulated today, Brian. That information is in there. So if you read through what Brian circulated, it was very specific why it wasn't suitable for a senior center.
Okay, that's great, because I didn't, I read the, clearly I must have missed it in the 70 or so odd page of the previous previous report, but
and if we keep taking things out of Shattuck Street, either we're going to have a big hole in the town or something else is going to happen. And I'm hoping that something good will happen. And, we'll all be proud of the project that goes in there. But, and again, I don't know where that is and, where you guys are in terms of what are you going to do when Anthony's the only one left in the building,
right? When
you keep pulling people out,
right? No, I can appreciate that, Fred. We can talk more about that on the 24th as well.
Yep, that's great.
Okay.
Just remind me, if you could give me just a heads up, because I know it's going to be a big document. If you could give me sort of any heads up of where to look for that information in the document, that
look in the email that Ryan sent to you this afternoon, Brian. Everything's in there, and it includes a summary from me. That highlights exactly what was discussed as far as using that space for a senior center.
I think there are a couple of links to the town website, Brian, that I think will take us to where you want to go.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Super. Yep. Thank you, Cindy. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Hey, just one more comment on this, and then up what I'm saying, but I think we got to look at the bigger picture, because if we are going to use this for school and park and rec, that's more people that are going to be moving out of the main town building. And that's okay, but we don't have a plan for that building either. So us doing things piecemeal is not the way I would manage my finances at home. So we got to have a bigger plan.
Right. And it's funny. It's actually, when I try to open that, this is why I didn't read it. When I tried to open the attachment, I get the beach ball of death. So I'll reboot my computer and try again. But we also assume that let's suppose we do decide to buy it for Park and Rec and the schools and the town workers in general. That we're going to then be asked for a couple million to do renovations on it,
right?
And then we're going to be asked for a couple million to retro whatever we're doing with the existing building. So it's just those are. I would just love to see all that bundled in, because I want the transparency of the cost, because town meeting members go nuts when they say, "Oh, we asked for this," and well, that implies that we were going to ask for this. And town meeting says, just tell us up front. So the 3 or 4 million to buy it, that's really going to be 3 or 4 plus 3 plus another 4.
It was like the tennis courts related to the senior center. So what are the tennis courts related to Indian Hill? What's the other thing that would have to be involved?
Well, hopefully we can actually get people together for the 17th. I don't know, Al, whether you're available on Tuesday nights.
Yep, I made plans. I will be there in person.
17th and the 24th.
Yep.
Then that, I think, face to face, we ought to be able to have, some of these discussions. And if there are, if there's information available that we don't have, we ought to be able to ask for it, or participate in discussions on this. We still have, we're coming down sort of to the end of the wire here. It's only like 4 or 5 weeks away, but at least we're able to have the discussions and not have to make a vote on sort of half the information. So I think that's an important step forward that we were able to ask. And I was in town hall today and heard that Brian went to selectmen's meeting last night and basically made a similar plea to what you're doing now tonight, Al. And I think he got people's attention. So I think it's a good thing to be transparent and to be open. And the more information we have, the better decision we can make for the taxpayers. So I think that's good. Alicia, did we shortstop you on anything else you wanted to discuss? Or
no. Nope. Thank you.
Okay.
And Fred, if I could just say, I was able to open that email finally, and it just brings me back to the same page with 9 links to reports. I'll go through all 9 again, but in my previous journey through those 9 reports, I didn't see the information that Cindy mentioned, but having the assurance that she said that it's there, I will try again, because I probably just missed it.
And again, I would, Cindy offered, if you don't see what you think she said was there, reach out to her and discuss it. I feel, I think that's reasonable.
Right. And Cindy's there. It's like, yeah, Cindy, there's 9 documents.
Yeah. So Brian, that's all right. I'll forward you exactly what I'm talking about.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That would really
I'll send it to you right now.
Outstanding. Thank you.
All right, great. Sure. Bye.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Cindy.
Yep.
Okay, other than Cindy, do we have any public input? Is anybody else out there? Nobody. Okay, member updates. We just go around the horn. Jerry? Nothing? Okay. Tom?
I mean, I just am curious as to why we would, you know, as Shattuck Street keeps getting vacated, you know, library's out. Now they're thinking about putting Park and Rec in a different spot. You know, I'd be curious to know what the purpose of Shattuck Street will be. You know,
Right.
I mean,
Well, I think that, you know, that it makes sense to me that there must be a plan or there must be a vision. And if there is, then I think we need to come forward with what that vision is, because we're asking the townspeople to pay good money to buy buildings to put people into that already have a house, right? It may not be the most wonderful house, but, you know, mostly it doesn't rain on them. Once in a while the roof leaks, but mostly it doesn't rain on them. And, you know, we're building an $18 million or close to $18 million senior center. And so, you know, they move across, they don't even move across town, they move across the driveway. And if Park and Rec comes out, that's another big hole in that building. So, you know, there must be some plan in place to take care of that. I would hope anyway. You know, I could envision it being senior housing. You know, a lot of schools around the state are turned into senior housing. And if you think about that, that could be senior housing right next to the senior center, right next to the library. I mean, I could envision that as being a nice little community. But that, you know, we aren't there yet, I don't think. But, you know, that would be something that I could say, I wouldn't mind spending a few extra bucks on my taxes for, to do that kind of thing. So that's, but I agree with you.
That? I'm sorry.
Sure.
Can I interrupt you? So that is exactly what the select board's actually looking at right now for use of the town hall. We issued an RFI a few months ago and got back 3 responses to that. To find out what information to see who would come forward as far as nonprofit builders and other developers that specialize in converting buildings such as Shattuck Street into senior housing. So the select board is looking into that, and we're supposed to be reviewing the responses to the RFI in the coming, I'm not sure which meeting, if it's going to be in January or if it's not going to be until February. But we did get in 3 responses that we discussed briefly as a board.
Okay.
But more information is going to be coming out about that as well, just because we want to look into that possibility for all the reasons that you just mentioned. So,
yeah.
Okay, well, I think that information is really important, not only to get out to us so we can get, you know, we can get on the bus with you or not, right. But I think that's really important. But I also think that going to town meeting, asking for a bunch of money to move departments into, there ought to be sort of a vision as to what's going to happen. Like Tom brought up, geez, I'd like to know what we've got a bigger and bigger space in that building that's going to be vacant. What are we going to do with it? Right. So I think that's an important piece of what we bring forward, Cindy. So if we can figure out how to do that without cutting off our nose to spite our face, I think that would be a perfect way to bring this kind of thing forward.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, the other question I have is, you know, obviously if Shattuck Street is turned into senior housing, now what happens to all the other town offices? You know, where do we go from there? So you
have a big rec room, right?
Yeah, we could do the room over my garage. That would accommodate about 3 people.
So, okay. But no, those are the kinds of questions. Well, if you're asking them, Tom, people in town meeting are going to ask them. And I think rather than, having egg on our face, I think we need to have some story or some vision to bring to town meeting. And Cindy, I think that the vision certainly falls back on the select board.
Right.
So if you guys are comfortable doing that, great. If not, then I think we could have a bit of an issue going forward here.
Right. No, I agree.
Right.
Okay.
Right. There's a lot of moving pieces. It's like Indian Hill, Shattuck goes to Indian, senior housing goes there. There's just a lot of pieces.
A lot of moving pieces.
Right. That we're trying to fix in 3 weeks.
Yep. Great. Okay. Anything else, Tom?
No, I'm good there.
Okay. You over the Patriot season?
Still in mourning, but that's a whole.
All righty. Brian?
Yeah, see. So Alan and I met with the police chief, and we had I thought it was a great meeting. He talked about the 40% fuel reduction with the hybrid vehicles. He mentioned, in passing, that his expense budget has been flatlined for a while, and he was good natured about that. But it's funny. He's like, oh, I've been buying lots of buildings, but I can't get more money for my copy paper. So, he said that all good naturedly. He gave us a great tour of the department. I was, obviously, it's not my first time walking around there, but I was impressed with how cramped it is. And, they have a plan for adding, some officers as time goes on. And then we talked about, okay, do you have enough space for the officers we'll need when we add 750 housing units over at IBM, a couple hundred over at the mill, and then 150 over at the train station? He said, nope. So, they have room for like 2 more officers. So at some point, I can imagine us having to do an extension on the police department, the brand new police department that's only 10 years old. So that was interesting. I also met, and Al and I did that. I met this morning with the fire chief and had a really, I think, profound situation happen that I'm still sort of reeling from, and that they let me in the building, and then we're waiting for the chief to show up. And so I was listening to the calls that came in, and a call came in and said, ambulance needed for 85-year-old woman found by caretaker, unresponsive, cold to the touch. And the chief walked in just at this point, and I said, that's a dead body, right? He said, yeah, it is. And they had to go handle that with mutual aid because one of the ambulances is in the shop getting painted, and the other one had just transported someone to Emerson. So and my mom's 90 years old, and so it put it really in my face of, damn, some of our services are right on the edge. So that has stuck with me all day. We also talked a bunch about the overtime budget, and part of the reason why adding one person didn't help the overtime budget as much as you might think is because they essentially have 2 teams of 4 people. And if you add one, then you unbalance the team. And for all kinds of social dynamic reasons, that's not so good. And having a fire prevention officer to prevent all these things from happening in the first place, that is to the good. So, and he was sort of blindsided at that select board meeting. And I said, well, y'all and us both, So I think we did a good job at mending some fences, building some more bridges, and agreeing to work closely together. And I feel like I have a closer understanding of what's going on with them. So I think these meetings are great.
Okay.
And then obviously, met with public input at the selectmen's meeting last night. And I really stressed, not speaking for the FinCom, just speaking for myself, trying to get towards that consensus that we want before town meeting. And it seems like the members took it that way. So, okay, that's it.
Okay, good. Thank you. Anything else, or are you all set? Great. Okay. Al, do you have anything?
If you do, Al, you're on mute.
Mute. Nope. Okay, well, if he comes back, we'll...
Oh, I'm here. Sorry, I was trying to find my mute button on my phone. I'm on this side.
Yeah, okay. Just whether you have any input for member inputs. And you're on mute again. You found the mute button again.
I found it again. No comments from me.
Okay, very good. Thank you. The only thing I have is, we are in budget season, and as Alicia mentioned, they sent out electronic copy of the budget, and you also have the budget books. They're for each one of you are available at the town administrator's office if you so choose to go by and pick one up. And there is a schedule of the next actually the budget fiscal calendar came out, and Ryan attached it to his email along with the departments that will be looked at on the 17th, at the 24th, and Super Saturday, the 4th. So if any of you have departments that are on the 17th, please find a way to touch base with them prior to the 17th. And the same for the 24th, and then obviously for Super Saturday. I've met with most of the ones that are on for the 17th. I did that over the last couple of days. I have EHS who will be up later that I'll be meeting with. And if any of you don't remember who you have as a department, Tyler sent out a memo on November 17th with all of the department assignments. So if you need that, it's available. You go back in your emails for November 17th, 22 from Tyler Gray. Okay, so you'll have that if you need it. Other than that, that's all I have. Thank you for your attention, and if nobody has anything else, excuse me, minutes. Is Marilyn on?
He is. Hold on 1 minute and I'll promote her to panelist.
Okay, I don't think we have the right people to vote them, but let me just verify that.
Yeah, Fred, I don't think I was.
No, you weren't here, and I'm not sure that Al was either, but I just want to verify that with Marilyn.
Okay.
Hi, Marilyn.
Hello, Fred.
Do you have the last minutes for us, or?
They're all done, but I don't have them with me. They're upstairs.
That's okay. No, the question I had was, I think it was Tyler, Jerry, Brian, and me on that meeting. Is that correct?
There were only 4 people. There was yeah.
Okay. Yep. And then we don't have the correct 4 to be able to approve them. So okay. If you can have them for next time when we
you want them for the 17th, or do you want them for the 24th, or when do you want them, Fred?
Why don't, Alicia, if you can put minute approval on the 17th, yep. Just so we don't get too far behind, because now we'll have 2 sets of minutes to approve. That would be helpful. And we can just take 5 minutes before the meeting and approve the minutes, and because we'll have more, we obviously have more of a quorum tonight, so that'll be better. But on the last minutes, we only have that 4. So
There were very few people.
Yeah, we need those 4 to approve them. So, okay, great. Thank you, Marilyn.
You're welcome.
Okay, now from a favorite motion of the evening, anybody want to make a motion
to adjourn?
So moved.
Tom moves and
Second?
Brian seconds. All in favor, roll call. Tom?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Jerry? That was an aye in silence. And Al, are you there?
Aye. Yep.
Okay, and I'm an aye as well. So we have 5-0 to adjourn, and I won't take umbrage at that. Thank you very much, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.